Market year to date is basically neutral. There's a lot of things that are still unanswered, and we've got a lot of stuff that. So in other words, like projecting out what the market's going to do from this point forward is almost a fool's errand. And every week we could come up with a different idea because the data and the tariff information and everything changes so dramatically.
All thoughts and opinions shared in this recording belong to the participants. This podcast is meant to inform and educate and should not be seen as solicitation or endorsement for business.
Hey everyone, welcome to this week's Market Moment. Lee Mackey here alongside John Martfeld.
Good morning.
Isaac Johnson.
Hello.
We've given Matt the morning off. Thank you, Isaac, for jumping in. Hope everyone had a great Memorial Day weekend. John and his family had a good vacation last week?
In Florida.
Florida.
It was
sunny?
Beautiful, sunny. We're on the beach at Seaside. Unbelievable. Had a great, relaxing time. Ran into Eli's parents.
Yeah.
We know Eli, and ran into Eli's parents. Was pretty fun.
How's the economy down there?
It seems to be roaring just fine.
I actually thought about you this weekend thinking, I'm going to ask him, any signs of a slowdown?
None.
Yeah. Premium prices?
Yeah, premium prices. And if we tried to get reservations at one restaurant, couldn't get them. It was like a month out of reservations, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So they're not hurting at all in Seaside, Florida.
Glad you had a good time, Isaac. Yosemite.
I was the exact opposite of the beach.
Yeah, you were hiking
Went hiking. It was the most packed I've ever seen. I mean, there's not as much to buy when you're in the national park.
Right.
But,
get some redwood.
The line just to get in was 2 miles long. And then they shut it down on Saturday. You had to have a reservation a month out. Just Memorial Day weekend, it was packed.
Wow.
So is it you
lots of travel.
Is it you or your wife that has the bucket list of hitting every
My
national
wife's
park?
the national park head.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
cool.
So we knocked out 3 this long weekend.
What'd y'all do?
Oh, that's cool.
Yosemite,
Sequoia, and Kings Canyon, which is like kind of tied in with Sequoia.
Yeah.
But
awesome. The weather was cool.
Weather was warm-ish.
Yeah.
The time change got me, so I was waking up at 4 a.m.
Oh, right.
And
nice.
so like whenever we were getting out at 5, so it was cold, and then by the afternoon, it was great. I mean, we
That's
sat out
awesome.
by the pool at our hotel at one evening.
Well,
So
I stayed here where it rained.
I know it's
And
been
rained.
It's like Seattle.
It's still raining.
And then
right now.
rained again. So glad y'all had a good time. This week's podcast is going to be somewhat shorter due to some time commitments and filming this. Today is Tuesday, but it's a Monday here at the office because of the holiday. So we got off a little bit. But we just want to touch on, a few quick items. Y'all may have been on vacation, but, the world's still spun.
Stuff is happening.
Stuff is still happening. Let's hit a couple. Let me just do a weekend review. Last week was a red week in the markets. Every indice.
First one in about 6 weeks, right?
Mm-hmm.
7 weeks.
The only equity sector that was positive, international.
Yep.
And it was up pretty nicely, 1.5%. Every other S&P, Dow, NASDAQ, Russells were all down, 2.5 and more. Year to date, all the major indices slipped back into the red ever so slightly. Going back 1 year, still in the green.
Yep.
Volatility is the name of the game. We're going to head into the summer. With that being the case, as we've been, it sounds like a broken record, but tariff related.
Yep.
Trump speaks, on Thursday, and says that he's going to slap Apple, with additional 50% tariffs, and the markets didn't like it.
No, not a fan.
And then of course today he extended the deadline for the EU, and the markets are.
I know.
back up.
We have CNBC, Fox Business, different channels on in our office occasionally. We to get market stuff, and I always wonder how these people have something to say, 24 hours a day. These stations, I guess some of them have recordings and stuff. It's not always 24 hours a day, but you get my point. It's like, and we do this once a week, and it seems like it's a broken record because we talk about the same things.
Mm-hmm.
But I can't imagine doing this daily, like for 12 hours a day, talking about the same things. But it is the same things. It's tariffs. Today, the tariff, he got a call from the Eurozone, and they're going to extend it out to July 9th. And so and the whole hope of that is that extending it out to July 9th gives them time to come up with a deal. Right, and that's what the idea of that not because they're just giving them an extra time to get their stuff together. No, it's to get a deal done.
Yeah.
And the deal doesn't have to be beautiful. It just has to be a deal, I think, at this point. The biggest deal needs to be with China still. Like, that's the main problem here. But Europe, we just need to get a deal done regardless. So I think that's, the tariff stuff is a big conversation point. Then we have data points that come out. Give you two that are kind of interesting last week that I thought they kind of contradict each other. Existing home sales declined, but new single-family home sales increased. Mm-hmm. And if you read the bottom line to that, one shows a little bit of a sign of weakness and one shows a sign of strength. And if you combine them together, it's neutral.
Yeah.
And, the market year to date is basically neutral. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of things that are still unanswered, and we've got a lot of stuff so in other words, like, projecting out what the market's going to do from this point forward is almost a fool's errand. And every week we can come up with a different idea because the data and the tariff information, everything changes so dramatically, and it's a broken record. But anyway,
and we touch on it almost weekly here on the podcast. Another key indicator that came out late last week was the consumer confidence in May increased significantly. That comes out every month. What's your take on that? Most of the people that we visit with, I would say are somewhat optimistic. But it seems like the prevailing view around the country, there's pessimism. The consumer confidence index going up was as a result of people probably wishing and hoping that tariff deals are made. What are your thoughts? I mean, okay, both of y'all are on vacation in different parts of the country. Some may say, well, people are choosing to do the road trips and the national parks because it's too expensive to go to Disney World.
Yeah.
I'm
sure.
picking something out. But so you were in different parts of the country, Florida, California. Mm-hmm. What did you hear? What was your sense of spending,
Business
of people's
usual.
confidence?
Yeah, business as usual.
Yeah.
I think it's a testament. I mean, the thing that I kind of like to look at and listen into is people still have jobs. If you have income coming in, you're going to spend it.
Yep.
Which will probably bite us in the butt at some point because you're going to spend more than you make eventually. But as of now, people still have jobs, and that's
and I kind of think
part of the equation.
Same sentiment. I don't think people care as much as we think they care. I don't think Americans care as much as we think they care. As much as the media makes us think they care.
Yeah.
I really don't. Like, you go back to,
about what?
About Trump or Biden or tariffs. I don't think most people give a hoot about that stuff. I really don't.
Yeah.
I mean, there are some of us, we live in the world, we have to pay attention to it, but I don't really think it matters. I go back to 2019 before COVID, when inflation was in a great spot. We had great unemployment numbers. We had great low interest rates. Everything was just perfect. Since 2019 or since 2020, COVID started, prices have gone up dramatically. And I eventually think that we will pay the price for our national debt that we've created and our consumer debt that we've created. That can't keep going on forever. But people like to live the way they've always lived, and it's really hard to change your habits to be more frugal. And that's why our credit card debt is at the highest level it's ever been, because people don't like to change habits.
Right.
So you'd hope that salaries get caught up to inflation and so on, and then everything be fine. I do see there's signs of I don't like, and I've been this kind of the pessimist on the group because I don't like the numbers. Eventually, the numbers will work out where you can't go past a certain point, and it's going to come back down. But the other thing I think is, now just it's changing subjects, but not really. I'm a economist mindset, and I think of two people, Milton Friedman and the Keynesian, John Maynard Keynes, right? And I know this is like, nobody cares about this stuff. I get it, because it's like these are just economies from way back. But we are in the John Maynard Keynes way of doing things, which is high government spending to get out of every mess. And it does not work, has not worked, will never work. And you often have some type of recession or something bad happen to prove that it doesn't work until you get the other side, kind of going.
Yeah.
Just to put an example, Reagan was on the Friedman side, and we've been on the Keynes side for about, basically 20 years through multiple different presidents. So I think there's stuff like that. Our national debt is a very big problem that we do not talk about enough, that eventually will come and get us. But the everyday consumer American does not, in my opinion, does not pay attention to that. In Seaside, Florida, every place I went to, there was not an ounce of politics talked from any source, from any person. I saw one Make America Great hat again. That's the only thing I saw that was political the entire week that I was there. And I didn't hear or think about it, and I didn't think about it. It was like the most refreshing week to not think about it.
Touching on the national debt, what crept into the number 2 on U.S. expenditures is interest. Is now the second highest spend we have.
Well, that dovetails into something that is lurking, that is potentially a big deal.
Yeah.
Student loan repayments. For the first time in over 5 years, student loans the government is going to enforce the repayments. And I was reading this. Using a range of interest rates and lengths of repayment plans, J.P. Morgan estimates that that disposable personal income could be collectively cut by between $3.1 billion and $8.5 billion every month due to collections.
Which would be massive problems to the economy.
Assuming that everyone that now has a student loan will repay on time and what they need to, their minimum monthly, we're talking about a sucking sound of on the low end, $3 billion a month taken out of the economy. Now, you could say, well, it's going to come back in the form of something else, through the government side. But that's $3 billion that's not being spent at Old Navy, Target, Disney, athletic events. I mean, it's a real deal.
Yeah.
And most of the time, it's hitting the lower income.
Yeah.
It's going to be hitting those 20-somethings, 30-ish, that graduated college 5 years ago, and they've yet to have to pay.
I have a great story. I have a friend that has a daughter that graduated from Baylor. She went on to get her master's at Vanderbilt. So this is a brilliant girl. She makes $60,000 a year.
Ouch.
She's got $400,000 worth of education that she paid for.
Yeah.
Now, and this is the thing I say. Both my kids are in college, and I'm going to say this is the one aspect of our country that has gotten out of control, completely out of control. I don't even know if it's worth it for most kids to go to college. I'm to the point now, this is so expensive. And you talk about the student loans are coming up and the rate of income that we're going to make for these kids coming out, and they're having trouble finding jobs. This is not a good scenario for the young under 30 crowd. I know you're part of that, Isaac.
Yeah.
Well, student loans, going to your debt issue, student loans make up 9% of all outstanding consumer debt. When you take out mortgages, it jumps up to 30.
It's amazing.
Well, and what's scary is there's not even a fix for bankruptcy. You
can't discharge.
You can't discharge student loans. So they're here to stay. They're going to get paid back one way or another.
And I don't disagree that you should pay them back if you took the student loans out. I'm of the opinion that if you take it, you know what you're doing, you should pay it. But I don't think you're getting what I think our universities, let's go back just to the universities. I know Harvard is having a bad time with Trump right now, but I think the universities in general have taken so much advantage of all of Americans and the kids, and terrible.
You go back over the last 20 years during a very low inflationary period of time. Inflation was averaging, let's say 2.5%. Universities, year after year, were increasing tuition 8 to 10 to 12%.
Exactly.
Every year over year over year. Not sustainable.
No.
And no one held their feet to the fire. No one put it in check. And now you've got situations where a young lady is graduating with a $60,000 a year salary, which is not bad.
No.
But she has
$400,000 of debt.
And her minimum payment's probably $2,000 a month.
And she went to Baylor and Vanderbilt. These are two highly respected universities. You would think your beginning salary should be higher, right? A master's degree from Vanderbilt, right?
Yeah.
It's amazing.
It's a lack of education from a young person's perspective. The amount of people I knew in college who were spending all that money, because I went to the University of Tulsa. Luckily, I was on an athletic scholarship, but it's $50,000 a year. And
were you a swimmer?
Yeah, I was on a rowing team, and they're spending $50,000 a year to get a teaching degree.
Yeah,
Right.
And it's like you're never going to see a return on that investment. You can go to NWAC and get the same jobs
Exactly.
you're getting from here.
You know,
and so
Exactly.
I
just
had
understanding the value. Go ahead.
I had a friend, still our friends, but 20-something years ago, he was a surgeon.
Mm-hmm.
He made the comment that my children will never go to, it was a private school, never go to blank
Mm-hmm.
to be a school teacher.
Mm-hmm.
And I at first I was like, that's, why would he say that? Well, now I think, you know what? There was some kind of wisdom in that.
No, no, it is.
I mean,
I taught
and
for
there's
2
no,
years. I feel like I can make that statement.
Yeah.
you know?
and there's no offense.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to offend any teacher
Yeah.
wherever you
Oh,
went
of
to
course
school.
not. Yeah.
But it's, teaching in Rogers or Bentonville
Yeah.
or Farmington or wherever,
Yeah.
whether you went to the U of A, NWAC, or Vanderbilt,
They're going to hire you either way.
they're going to hire you every way. And
because
they're
there's
gonna
a shortage of teachers.
and they're going to pay, and they're going to pay you the exact same amount.
yeah.
This is the funny thing about it. And Connor, my son, got into TCU, got into USC out in California, got into some really good schools, but they're so expensive it wasn't worth it. TCU is one of their biggest things they do down there is teaching.
Oh, really?
Education
I didn't
degree.
know
They
that.
actually have an elementary school on campus that they student teach at. It's pretty cool.
Beautiful campus.
Except the tuition is 50 times more than you're going to make. I mean, it's
Yeah.
ridiculous. You think about it, but it's a social thing. And so a lot of people like to send their kids to TCU or wherever because it's like, look, our kids, and I think it's in America and living in Europe for 8 years like I did and so on. It's just, I have a different perspective, but in America, we are spoiled rotten, and we have great economy and great everything, the greatest country in the world to lift people up and so on. But we're also spoiled. And it goes back to we've allowed education to get expensive because we the parents
Keep paying it.
And we want our kids to go and have experience and all that stuff. So we just kind of turn a blind eye to the cost. We don't think about it. Not enough anger build up about that. I just feel bad a lot for the kids that come out that don't have that situation, that gather the debt, don't have the opportunity to get a job to repay the debt. And it's eventually going to be a pretty bad situation.
Yeah.
And no other part of our economy has allowed something to increase year over year.
Yeah, without
10%
unchecked.
Unchecked.
Yeah, it's,
no
and it's
other part.
completely unchecked. And it's
So
just,
we'll see. I mean,
Yeah.
I think that there's now a lot being said about it.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens, but it'll be interesting. Last week, we had a guest on from JP Morgan. Fabulous conversation. I encourage y'all, if y'all are listening or watching, to go back and look at that. We'll close with this. We talked a little bit about the Fed and interest rates. We've got another Fed meeting coming up next month.
Yeah.
You're beginning to, will it happen in June? Will it not?
Yeah.
The point that was made in our podcast last week was, 2 or 3 years ago, no one thought, including probably everybody on this panel, no one thought that Chairman Powell would land the plane and, raise interest rates without creating a recession or throwing the economy into a tailspin.
Yeah.
I think by most accounts, he has.
Yeah.
Now the question is, on the flip side, can Chairman Powell, resist the political pressures and so forth and begin lowering on his time frame and not give in and do so in a way that doesn't spook the markets? Or
Sure. And in my opinion, and this is why I've been against Chairman Powell for a long time, and I'm actually not just Chairman Powell, the person, but in general, we've given way too much power to the Fed. They're talk about unchecked. They're completely unchecked. But what's amazing about it, going back to their original statement years ago when they were going to push us into recession, they should be still raising rates.
Yeah.
Like inflation has never gotten down to the target rate that they wanted to. It's never gotten down to where they swore it had to get down to before they stopped raising rates. So in reality, they have already gone against what they said. I mean,
by stopping,
which I think was good. I'm glad they stopped. But I'm saying, like, I don't know if I think we give so much love and respect and credit to that aspect of the market. And I go back to, like, companies determine the markets, and now taxes and interest rate and all that stuff matter big time. But the ultimately comes down to corporate profits. And if corporate profits, like Nvidia's today, I think, if corporate profits continue to beat where the market's going to continue to roar, when they start not beating the
things will take care of themselves.
Things will take care of themselves.
And we've seen that. The 10 year has kind of taken care of itself, given market and world conditions. But any final thoughts? This was a rapid fire 15, 20 minute podcast. Our listeners are probably like, yes, a short one. Anything you'd like to add?
No, just Memorial Day was yesterday. Just to all our sacrifice that has been made by our service members. So, appreciate you.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's a day that we remember those who made this possible. We can sit here and talk freely, and
exactly.
We don't have to worry about bad things happening. But well, as we've always said on the podcast, if you like what you hear or like what you see, please like or subscribe to our podcast on the streaming services, on YouTube. Each week it seems like we're gaining more subscribers, and we like that. We hope what we've talked about today was somewhat entertaining, maybe somewhat educational. For Isaac, for John, we hope everyone has a great week. We'll see you next week.
The hosts of the Market Moment podcast are employees of Mach 1 Financial Group, LLC. Mach 1 is a registered investment advisor located in Rogers, Arkansas. A copy of Mach 1's current written disclosure brochure is available through the SEC website and available at disclosures.mach1fg.com.